Today I'm riding the South Glos 100km Audax calendar event. I'm heading from my hometown in Bath to and from the event, so the total mileage should be over 100 miles today. An Imperial Century should be a good day out. After the last few years of riding DIY Audax events, that's where I design the route myself, ride where and when I want, as long as I stick within the time allowances. But this year I've started riding some calendar events again. Not many, and only the shorter distances. And so I've really been enjoying it. So far this year, I've ridden the Jack and Grace 100km event in January. In March, I rode Fletcher's Flapjack and also Barry's Bristol Bash. So today, after about 5 or 6 weeks, I'm riding this 100km event. I'm really looking forward to it. I've arrived at the start of the event, Ulverston. Got about 35 minutes in hand. The forecast today is a northeasterly wind. The route heads out eastwards and then comes back west. I definitely noticed the wind on the way out because I've been coming in north-westish. So I think the first part of the route heading out east may be a bit tricky. Maybe try and get in a group and ride that, and then coming back should be much easier. The registration table where you go and pick up your brevi card is over there under a gazebo, but because there's a bit of a nip in the eye, I'm just diving there to get out the cold wind. I'm about 30 minutes early, so I've got plenty of time. I don't want to sit around getting cold. So there's the card I've just been issued with. That's going to be my proof of passage. There's a little plastic weatherproof bag to put it in, and there's some notes I bought from home. When you unfold the card, you've got all these control boxes, so it's a set route that you need to ride through, and all these boxes are control points which just basically validate your ride. So at some of them the controls will be manned, like for instance there at Tetbury there'll be someone there probably with a stamp, or you may sometimes need to get a till receipt with time and date on it, but that's just to prove you've been through that place. And there's second control, Sapperton, that's a pub, that's really nice. That's also a pub, and then there's a finish here, but there's also information controls here. Those just points on the route where it's been decided you need to prove you haven't cut corners off. So they're just basically questions, and you don't know the question until you get the card. So the first one, for instance, 21 kilometres, it says at Inglestone Common, name of house on left hand side before red telephone box and sign for cattle grid. So I've written all these down because I'm following a breadcrumb trail. There's no detail or mapping on it, so I just want to roughly know when those are coming. 13 miles, so I'm prepared for that. When I start off, I'll fold my brevi card, so that question is going to be easily accessible, and I've got my pen and I'll just fill in the answer. And then on the back of the card, sometimes they'll print out labels with all your details. Other times, like today, you'll need to do it yourself, so that's what I'm just going to do now. Put my AUK number in there, my name, address, postcode, and then at the end I'll sign it, and they also ask for an emergency contact number, but that is actually on the database. That's now ready to put on the bike. I've filled my details in, I've got it folded ready for the first control, and I'll keep that in my snack bag so it's easy to get to, just to remind me there's a control at 13 miles. first stamp control, Tetbury, the old railway station. I didn't know this was here. I think we actually leave on the old railway line as well, because I did notice when I looked at the GPS route there's an off-road section here, so this must be it here, following the old railway line. Now at the control, I'm really looking forward to actually sapperton right down in this lovely steeply wooded valley. After lunch we got to go back up there, just retrace about a quarter of a mile or so. This is absolutely fantastic location. This is Daneway at Sapperton. We've just dropped down that really steep hill, crossed over this river, then we'll be heading back up there. This is absolutely delightful here. What a location. After lunch, as I was banking on, it's got a lot easier because I'm heading westwards. Normally I'd be heading into the prevailing wind. All of this ride's really nice because really a lot of it is up on the South Cotswold escarpment and it's quite rolling or very agricultural. The last few miles have been fantastic. I had a narrow strip of tarmac with fields of rape on either side. The smell and the atmosphere was absolutely wonderful. The whole of the route's been really good, but this next bit is absolutely a gem, and doubly so I think because the weather's been so good to me today. Normally it's a bit of a grind coming along here. I'm just about to cross the very busy A46. Be Bath that way, Stroud that way. We go across what looks like a farm track dead end, but it's not. Once you pass the farm, you drop down into the valley that time forgot. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm going to try and film along there. You climb up out of the valley to Kingscote, the pub there. I stopped there recently and filmed outside. It's actually on Margery 543, the Roman road that joined the Fossway near Easton Grey over to the River Severn, where Margery believed there was a crossing at Arlingham over to the Forest of Dean. As we come up this junction, it's a nice little quiet spot. It looks like it's just a farm track, no signposts or anything. We're heading right over there. This is quite tame today. There's a little bit of a breeze, but it's not making riding hard. It's actually beneficial. As I said, sometimes this can be a real slog along here. Just round that next left-hand turn, we're going to drop down off this escarpment into the valley. Just dropping down the woods, just checking those cyclists are coming down at speed. And it opens out into the valley that time forgot. Wow, a little bit of paradise. Then as we drop down into the foot of the valley, look at this. How's that for a road? And before you know it, it's time to start climbing out again. The road's going to bend round to the right here, go up through those trees, emerge at Kingscote, and we'll be right opposite the final control. Need to put my camera away because that's a bit of a grind up there. Seems like that weren't that many behind me actually. You never know, you think you're on the road by yourself. I only stopped here just to get my card stamped. and they're coming in thick and fast. You can see this road's quite busy. We go along here a few miles, turn off it, and then drop down off the escarpment into 100km. I can't film the next bit, it's too dangerous, but this is the view from about halfway down the hill. We're heading down that way into 100km. It just gets faster and faster with a couple of S-bends on the way down. I've just left the route very slightly. I've cut a little corner off by coming up this little back street. It's a shortcut a friend showed me to avoid a little bit of busy junction. But you come up past this pub called the Star Inn. You can see it was established in 1512, very old pub. And look at that out there. Picture the Titanic on it. I wondered why that was, so I went home and looked it up, and this story is absolutely fascinating. So very briefly, the son of the landlord in the 1800s emigrated to Canada to find a better life, and he set up a timber company there, and it's very successful by all accounts. And he was looking for a name for it, so he called it White Star, partly named after his parents' pub. And that business he then sold and set up a shipping line, which was then bought by other people, and it went on to become the White Star Line of Titanic fame and others, and they just kept the name. So that's where the White Star Line name originated. And in the early 20th century there was two really big shipping lines working the Atlantic routes, Cunard and White Star. In the Depression of the 1930s, had to go to the government for a bailout, and the government did bail them out, but there were strings attached. They had to merge, make cost savings, become more efficient, and so they did. The two firms merged and they kept the name of Cunard, but they became a joint venture, and their first project together was the Queen Mary, which was ready just in time for the end of the Depression, and when business took off again, all started here.
There is a sign somewhere over sort of faintly above the door.
That's me back at the finish of the 100km event. Started off a little bit nippy, but it's turned into a really hot day. Once I get off some main roads onto the bike track, I'll be taking this off, and very, very warm at the moment. Really enjoyable event actually, all the controls are really good. This is a pub, about a mile, 3/4 of a mile maybe from the start, so they're quite close together. Just going to ride downhill back to Bath now, and it should take me over the 100-mile mark, so I'll finish the video off somewhere down on the bike track, I expect. I'm now about halfway home from the end of the Audax, which was that way, to my home in Bath that way, about 10 miles to go. This is the old Mangotsfield station, part of the Midland line from Bath Green Park to Bristol Temple Meads, but it also split here and the line went up north that way, so it's like a three-way junction. I love learning and discovering fascinating stuff and then sharing it with you. This station, when it was an actual railway in the 1920s, a very young Arnold Ridley, better known as Mr. Godfrey from Dad's Army, bless him, was here one night. I think it must have been winter, it's foggy, and he thought he heard a train go by. Apparently it was an echo that a lot of people heard from sidings nearby, and it just gave him the idea to write a play, which was then very successful, turned into a film called The Ghost Train. So that was fantastic. That happened here, real story. And I was brought up with Dad's Army. I was about 8 and 9 when it was out, and I used to sit and watch it with my grandparents who had lived through the war, and they just told us so many anecdotes, so I loved Dad's Army. And recently, I can't remember his name, I'll put a link to his channel down below, but he's an historian who does really unusual historical videos, and he actually traced the actual real military duty of all the actors in Dad's Army, and a lot of them did do service. And what he said was, and I didn't know this, and I'm sure many people don't either, is when they put the ribbons on the actors' costumes in character on Dad's Army, they were actually represented, the ribbons and the medals that they had won in real life. I mean, for instance, Private Fraser is stereotyped as a sailor. He actually served in the army, but he went on a polar expedition with Scott, I think, and he's got the polar medal there. And that's fascinating. He goes through all the main characters, even the warden and the vicar, everybody, so that's really good. So again, I'll drop a link to that below. It started off a bit cold. I dived in one of those buildings in the school at the start, because I was there about half an hour early just to stay warm, get out the wind as well. And it just turned really nice and warm from about the Danebury pub actually onwards. So it's been a fantastic ride. I've got a couple more hundreds booked in actually, one in early June just before I go off on my holiday, one in late June I think, and then I'm doing a ride over the Tumble in July. So that's been my Audaxing this year. And as I said earlier on, it's a few years since I've ridden calendar events, and I've actually really loved the shorter distances, especially today. I was catching up with some old mates, Neil and Will and Rufus and a couple of other people. That was really nice. My next video in a couple of weeks time is going to be another mini tour. I'm going to get an early morning train down to Newton Abbot in Devon, and then a couple of miles from there I'm going to join the Churches Conservation Trust South Devon cycle route. Apparently it's quite challenging, it's quite hilly. There's 4 churches en route. One of them is up a little track on a lane, it's quite remote. The other 3 are spectacular. One of them is actually on a cliff overlooking the sea, so that should be really good. Then after that I'm going to head north up to Dartmoor, just on the very southern edge of Dartmoor. I'm going to spend the night in another church champing, and then the next day I'm going to head westwards to a very remote outlier of a thankful village. In fact, it's a doubly thankful village. That means everybody who went off to serve in the First and the Second World War returned safely home. So I'm going to go there. There's 3 or 4 official campsites right in the village, but I think I'd Google Maps somewhere where I can wild camp, so whether it's feasible or not I don't know. I'll be camping. Hopefully I can avoid a campsite, hopefully I can wild camp. The next morning I'll just zoom into Plymouth. There's even a chain ferry across the river, so I can avoid the busy A38 and get a train back to Bath. So hopefully that'll be the next video. As usual, in the meantime, look out for each other everybody, and I'll see you soon.